Good evening, all. Thank you for coming out on such a beautiful spring day. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We call the roll, please.
Augustinelli. Here. Duel.
Here.
Schmuckel.
Here.
McCumber. Here. McManus. Here. Barshef.
Here.
Corn.
Here. All present and accounted for. First item on our agenda is public comment. If there's any member of the public who would like to make comment, please come to the podium and be so kind as to give us your name and address. I will close public comment and come back to the board for review and approval of the amended agenda and any conflict of interest.
Make a motion that we approve the amended agenda.
Support.
We have a motion and support to approve the amended agenda. Are there any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item is the consent calendar.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with in one board motion without discussion. Any member of the board, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single board action adopting the consent calendar. You have minutes, April 11th, 2023, regular meeting, and May 2nd, 2023, study session. Recommend approval. Bills from the general fund, $585,958.02. And Gordy Frazier Developers Escrow Fund, Stormwater Reviews, Utility Plan Review, Oversight and Closeout, $9,562.35. And General Utilities, $22,060. And the total is $31,622.35. Recommend approval. You have the MTT update, receive and file. Consideration of proposed new road name of Carriage View, recommend approval. Tax collection settlement history, receive and file. TCAPS and Garfield Township agreement for collection of summer property taxes, 2023 and 2024, recommend approval. Consideration of application to apply for a grant through the Township for the Salvation Army, recommend approval. Consideration of nominating John Racine to serve another 3-year term on the Grand Traverse Commons Joint Planning Commission. Recommend approval. Consideration of contractor's application for payment number 1 to Elmer's for Cedar Run Water Main Extension. Recommend approval. Consideration of contractor's application for payment number 1 to Walton Contracting for River East Dog Park. Recommend approval. Consideration of Resolution 2023-14T to amend the budget for HRA amount. Recommend approval. Consideration of Joint Rec Authority proposed annual budget for fiscal year 23-24. Recommend approval. And consideration of a request from Project Feed the Kids for a charitable gaming license. Resolution 2023-16T. Recommend approval.
Is there any member of the board who would like to remove anything from the consent calendar for discussion? Is there any member of the public who would like to remove anything? Or staff? No? And I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion we approve the consent calendar as listed. Support.
We have a motion and support. Are there any questions or comments? Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Duel.
Yes.
Barshef.
Yes.
Augustinelli.
Yes.
Schmuckel.
Yes.
McManus.
Yes.
McCumber.
Yes.
Corn.
Yes. All right. Next is items removed from the consent calendar, and there are none. Correspondence, also none. We are speeding right ahead to reports. The first item is our County Commissioners Report.
Good evening, everyone. How is everyone?
Good.
They enjoyed the beautiful sunshine today. I know I did. At our last meeting, we had quite a bit going on. First, we had the Sheriff's Department. The sheriff come visit us, and we approved to honor our wonderful police officers and corrections officers. This week is named National Correctional Officer and Employee Week, so. And next week is May 15th through the 21st is National Police Week, and there will be a ceremony on May 17th. I'm sure, hope to see a lot of your lovely faces. Judge Witten from the probate court came and reported about the work she is working on with our administration to bring a juvenile justice facility that's very needed in our region. She was talking to a Redstone architect. We have found that we have already hired a consultant, Tower Pinkster, as I think we mentioned last report. And we're going to add that facility into our the data and surveying of our facilities master plan. So that is coming forward, and not going to be working with the Redstone architects anymore, and just add that into already the survey happening with Tower Pinkster. They have been in talks with legislation down in Lansing that on the State House had brought and approved for the budget, for the state budget, $25 million for our area to work with, combining with Leelanau County, but building a facility up here in our region. On the 26th, that did not get through the state Senate, but they are still working very hard and diligently on trying to figure that out for our county and our region. I do hear when I did go to the Michigan Association of Counties conference 2 weeks ago, this is a top priority to bring more juvenile justice facilities to our state. It keeps a lot of families together and will really help the courts up here as well. Another priority of MAC, along with the MTA, is to keep the revenue sharing and also keeping aggregate mining in the local municipalities' hands. So that's something I've been going to be paying attention to and making sure that is something that's happening. We approved all the surplus from our Parks and Rec director, so I wanted to share that there will be a great garage sale at the Howe Arena on May 19th and May 20th. I saw a lot of good stuff on there, so I want to let everyone know that's happening. And then finally, we did finally get with our seventh copy or seventh try an enabling agreement through on and signed for Northern Lakes Community Mental Health. We were the 5th county to sign it out of the 6 of us, so that will be coming up. I think Misaki is signing it tomorrow. So that's moving forward, and we can finally get to helping our community with their mental health. Any questions? I know I talk fast, so I'm sorry.
Sounds like you're busy.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Our next report is the construction report.
Good evening, everyone. Jennifer Graham, Gordy Frazier. In your packet, and I see I did not update it, so it's still April 17th from last month. A lot of the stuff is still status quo, so I'll kind of go through and give some highlights. The first page still continues to identify a lot of our water system capital improvement projects. And I think the biggest thing is, as everybody's aware, and I've done a PowerPoint in the past, we are moving ahead applying to Eagle for their drinking water revolving fund. And it's fast approached. The township has advertised that the township intends to submit and solicit a request from Eagle for funding for our capital improvement projects. That will be on the agenda for next meeting of this month, so I will be long-winded, just to let you know. Give you guys advance notice, bring your coffee. We're talking about a lot of water system projects. The report itself right now is in draft version and will be in your packets for you guys to have in advance, so please read through it. You know, it's been a long process to pull all this together, collaborate, and identify a lot of the large capital improvement projects that we've continued to work on and monitor with the market and address for the next 5 years for our growth. So you'll have that in your packet for next meeting in advance to review. So please bring all your questions to help make it, to simplify the process, and for meeting minutes They have changed some of their protocol. They don't require a public hearing anymore, which is good for Eagle. They just require this to be introduced during a public meeting and engage the public. And then I will also be providing a PowerPoint that provides a summary of our project, the need for the project, alternatives that we reviewed, potential environmental, social, overall impacts and mitigation, and then what recommendations and cost implications will be associated with that. So that'll, you'll also have that available to you too, just to kind of refine and summarize the report. So that's going to be the big thing in 2 weeks that we're going to go through. As far as Cedar Run water main extension, they've put in about 1,500 feet. We're out there full-time providing inspection. There's a lot of utilities that we're encountering, a lot of fiber optic.
Oh.
And, yeah, and some of it we didn't find out until later through the MISDIG process. Fortunately, we didn't hit anything, but it's been slow for the contractor moving. So he's averaging about 200 feet a day at different times, and then sometimes we'll speed up. But what is remarkable is the amount of people calling, inquiring about wanting to connect and extend, and very interested in this project. So I think it's going to be very rewarding for all of us, and we're going to ultimately have a great customer base and relationship with Long Lake Township. So it's been a good project. And they're still on schedule, slated for completion the end of June. A few other highlights. Let's see. Bear with me a minute. We did get our county ARPA reimbursement request, and that was part of that Cedar Run project, Silver Lake project. So our supervisor forwarded that on to me to help process and get reimbursed for that. So I'm going to be taking care of that for you guys. And then a lot of just utility reviews, stormwater reviews are coming in. Windy Hills over on Herkner Road, the second phase through the tribe, they've sent plans over again and looking to want to finish that out yet this year. So we're putting that on our agenda. Village of Lafreniere's almost done, just waiting on a couple record documents to turn that over. Beta's moving ahead great. Pretty deep sewer. You guys probably, if you've gone that area, they've got some traffic control and have taken over one lane, which is fine. That sewer's about 25 feet deep in that area, working around our pump station. But through collaboration, we were able to put in, avoid putting any additional pump stations in, so it will be worth it for you guys long run. And then Britain, they're moving ahead with their water main extension, Cross and Cass. And Bermley Hills, both phases. I'm getting sewer permits and doing a utility review for them. And like I said, a lot of stormwater reviews coming in. So we're back in construction.
A question.
But I will entertain any questions you guys have for me.
It's
I
okay.
have
It's
a,
okay.
oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
The next item is the sheriff's report.
Good evening, Brandon Brinks, Garfield Lieutenant. And I'll start with the statistics real quick. Last month, we had 65 tickets written, 3 injury crashes, 16 property damage crashes, 8 OWI arrests, 55 criminal arrests, and 19 total crashes. We had the drug take back last month. Deputy Kirkpatrick worked that and picked up 33 pounds of unused prescription medication. And across the county, we had 100 pounds total. And then George Preston, Deputy Preston, did take back at some of the retirement homes too, outside of the actual take back day, just to help them out because they can't get to the actual take back sites. So all in all, there was 100 pounds picked up for the whole county for just that day for the 4-hour period. And then Deputy Preston did another fraud awareness presentation. Like I said, that's taken off. There's a lot of that stuff going. We sent more people to the Run, Hide, Fight classes because that's a huge thing that we do for the community. But Deputy Mikowski was the only person that was doing those. And so most of them were in Garfield, but he was also going outside of Garfield Township from time to time. So we were able to get 4 CPOs trained up in that so we can have other CPOs that are outside of Garfield handle stuff that's outside of Garfield. So we are, just as an update for the department, hopefully at the end of this month we'll be back to full staff for the first time in a long time. So we have 2 people coming out of NMC, and that's going to put us back at full strength for now. So and I'm back to staff and command next week. If you have anything, send me an email. And then Captain Fulis is working hard, trying to keep things on track for the flock cameras, and we have a bunch of larcenies, trailer larcenies, catalytic converters. We've got a bunch of stuff going on right now that it would be extremely helpful to have those in certain places. So, and the only other thing I was gonna bring up is I get questions from the news a lot of times, what's going on with this? We heard rumors about that. I don't know if you guys get that, if people call in the township, but if somebody calls, has a question about something that's going on somewhere, if they see police cars somewhere and they're asking you, just shoot me an email, text message, whatever. If I can tell you, I'll tell you. So, I think that's it. Any questions for me for last month?
Two easy ones. It's amazing since we've talked about this flock camera thing, how often you hear it now on the news
It's taken off
about a
like
license
crazy.
plate reader that got something like that. And then a quick question on the drug take back. Do you take back liquids too, or just hard pills or pills?
As long as it's sealed up, yes, but there's a lot of stuff. It's on the website what we can and can't take. I always have
Okay.
to refer to that, what's on there, and I always put it in all of our press releases, what can go. I want to say the last time DEA picked up was at our last take back, which was in the fall. So between then and the 100 pounds that we added, it was between 900 and 1,000 pounds that we turned into the DEA in April. So that was a lot of stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
So, anything else?
That's all good, thank
All
you.
right, Thanks.
Thank you.
Grand Traverse Metro Fire Department is not here today, so the Road Commission Chairman, Mr. Underwood, is going to give us a report. Oh,
First, I want to start out with, it came to my attention late this afternoon that the commissioner that I thought was coming to these meetings had not been attending, and I do apologize for that. So in the future, you're gonna, myself, or you're gonna get Elise here for your meetings, so.
Nice.
We do apologize for that. I'm glad it came to my attention. With that being said, I'm gonna run through a couple of things. I'm gonna have Elise run through a couple of things. The road commission, last meeting, we offered, the other thing I'd like to ask is, we can transmit our minutes if you'd like, after our meetings, and they're approved. We do that to the county. If you'd like to have a copy of those too, we're more than happy to ship those to you every meeting, so.
thank you.
They're exciting. So this last meeting, we approved over 3.7 million in chip and seal. That'll happen between this year and next year. It's gonna sound weird because that'll be somewhere between 30 and 60 miles. We're negotiating with the contractor when it's gonna happen. The later it happens, the more miles that'll get done. So we're hoping that it starts this fall before season ends, but we're not sure. Along with that, we approved over $300,000 in crack seal. We've also approved the county trucks to move over to the 800 megahertz system so that the county road commission will now be able to speak to the fire, police, dispatch. Everybody's gonna be on one unit. Deer kill, we're hoping to have a resolution to deer kill by midsummer. Representative Roth has been helping us tremendously come to a conclusion with the DNR. The problem there is the DNR has threatened to cite our drivers for moving the deer. It got kind of funny because a document appeared from 1997, back when I worked with Senator McManus, and so we're going back off of that 1997 memorandum of understanding. We just need to make sure the DNR will continue to follow that understanding. So the bridge is moving ahead. We're on the NEPA phase. That'll take about 12 months. A little more than halfway through there, we can begin the design phase. And also, we are also in contract to raise the money. So we are moving ahead with the bridge, full steam. And hopefully, we get through the NEPA phase, we get approved by the feds, we'll have the design ready, we'll have 10% of the money in the bank, and we'll be ready to move to the next phase. And your southeast corner, the Potter Roundabout had to be moved to next spring. That will be a full shutdown of Garfield when we do that, I understand. Heavy traffic will go down 3 Mile. I'm not sure if we're gonna we'll probably allow some passengers to go through Roush, so there will be a little change there, but we do plan on actually shutting that down as of right now, and when we do that rebuild. We are continuing ahead with the building in Kingsley. We'll be with Paradise Township tomorrow night to discuss the looks, what it's gonna look like. probably won't have that finished until next spring, but that'll help us reassign assets, which will help everybody across the county. We've just gone through an organizational reorganization of the staff, so we now have clear points of contact and clear understanding of who is responsible for what, so that we can get faster answers to you folks as well as the general public. Next month, we are going to end of this month, you're going to receive a formal request from the Road Commission to take a look at making no parking along Keystone Road by the soccer fields for safety reasons. That should be on our 25th meeting, and of course, we'll transmit that to you guys to consider further. With that, I'm going to turn it over, let you talk about the lights and the...
We're catching up on 4 months of you not having anybody here. Sorry about that. We finished our strategic planning thanks to John, who at his second job is our consultant for that. And the number one thing the Road Commission identified as a problem is communication. Probably don't need to tell any of you that. So a lot of our priorities are centered around communication. One of the main things to just get out to anybody, I'm sure you guys get calls about problems like potholes and traffic lights and signs, because I remember getting those too. And I always was happy to say, well, you can tell that to the Road Commission, but now I'm at the Road Commission, so it's not as funny. But we have a website where you can upload any kind of complaints like potholes, lack of vision, you know, like limbs that are in the way, anything like that. And you basically take a picture. It's a mobile readied website, so you can pull it up on your phone, take a picture. It captures where it is on the GPS and puts it in the map. And the best part of it is when you go to this, and all you have to do is go to our Road Commission website, and you'll see it right there to report a problem. When you do that, you will be able to see all of the other things that have been reported in that area. So say like our subdivision, which it looks like a third or fourth world nation, the road there, you can see all of your neighbors that have also uploaded the same thing. And if they've uploaded the same issue that you have, you can just click on the heart to like it. And the more people that like it, the more that that's prioritized, and the engineering department or operations department will see that. So if you have people that are really having problems with specific things like that on the roads, they can do this report thing. Similar to what Tart Trails does with the trail. If you've ever reported any problems on that, it will locate it for you. And we are working hard on making sure that not only does it get uploaded, but that people at the Road Commission respond to you. So if there are issues with that, please let us know as well. Moving forward on the MPO, many of you have heard about that ad nauseum, as I have, but I can't. It is really important that we all work together on this MPO, and I know that Garfield has signed a resolution to be part of the committee, which will eventually decide the board that will be distributing these funds. Without these funds, we won't be able to do something like the Hartman-Hammond Bridge and so many other projects that Northern Michigan has never been able to access funds like this before. And it's critical that it's all a part of it and that we're all together and speaking on the same page. So that's where that communication with the Road Commission comes in, because you are our largest municipality. And the last thing would be we approved just shy of $1 million last meeting, which was hard to swallow, for 2 traffic lights. So we're replacing 2 main intersections in Garfield, the Garfield and South Airport Road traffic light, and the one just up here at Victoria Drive and South Airport Road, right when you pull, you know, where the log cabin looking bank is coming off of Veterans here. And those will be completely replaced, and that's part of that strategic planning for the lights in the county. Traffic lights last about 25 years. And ours were way past that, as they weren't kept track of, and that's where you saw those failures in the traffic light at Lafreniere and South Airport last year, and just trying to make sure that that doesn't happen. So those happened. I think that was it. The grant writer. So we are doing 2 things at the Road Commission. Part of our, John knows all of this, I'm sure. We are going to be staffing a grant writer. And this is in connection with our MPO status and our change in access to all of these funds. We don't have the ability right now in-house at the current time to apply for these grants and really capture the access to these dollars. The MPO status allows us that open door, but without somebody with the knowledge to walk through it, we'll never be able to get the funds. So that's one thing. And we are also looking for a communication specialist to work for our board to help make sure that all of the municipalities and agencies actually get an answer from the road commission when they reach out. So those are two things we're moving forward with. So Joe or I will be here, and again, we apologize for that. I do cover Green Lake Township, which is changing their meetings to Tuesdays now, so it'll likely more be Joe on the second Tuesday of the month. But one of us will be here, and you can obviously reach out. You guys know where to find me. All right. Oh, question for Joe. Joe probably can answer better than me. I don't know.
Molly?
So I've got a question. On this traffic light we're putting up here on Veterans Drive, do we have an option to go with something other than the wire with the hanging lights, and or is that how are we changing the lights?
It's a total rebuild, which means
I think
everything, but I think it's on wire.
I think it is too. I don't think it's the metal
We authorized
post.
wire to be put on wire, but they're gonna have new posts, all new wiring, new signs. The signs will have the reflective back safety. Would you prefer them some other way?
Well, we've talked about the things that are closer to the metropolitan area in Garfield Township, kind of fancying those up a little bit. And
Mast
doing the
arms.
solid arms.
Mhm.
I can take it back and find out where we're at. We did authorize the contract, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, would the road commission be willing to make a change like that?
With a contractor, be willing.
Yeah. We'll find out and let you know.
Yeah,
okay.
that's
And then
The other light that we are taking out is the flasher over by the
the Cherryland Mall.
We did authorize that removal, so.
okay.
Now that Taco House isn't there anymore. Yeah. There is, I understand, a Starbucks going into that area, which Starbucks is my thing. But if you did have increased commercial access there as that outbuilding that the curling club owns, that parking lot area is looking at that outbuilding, obviously that traffic light could be re-engaged with, of course, the funding and partnership of the township.
It does not meet standard, so it has to be totally replaced
Yeah.
anyway, so we made the option to take it right out.
Okay.
What's your other question?
The other one was on the roadkill situation. I attended your meeting last week. I'm not sure everybody understands in the public that might be watching this what the situation is with that, and it's really quite peculiar. So a deer dies on the road.
Correct. It has been the policy of the Grand Traverse County Road Commission to take care of these deer. Generally speaking, we pick them up, move them off to the roadside. If they're in a populated area, we move them to a more rural area where there's nobody around so that it can be set off to the side and decomposed by itself. The DNR, I consider out of the blue, in December notified us that if we continue to do that, they were going to ticket the people that are doing it, up to $10,000 fines, and you got all the court costs. So we made a decision to protect our workers by saying we are not going to pick up those deer until we have a full understanding of how this is going to happen. And again, through Representative Roth, they've dug up this old 1997 agreement that the DNR gives us the authorization. It can spin out of control because we also have to have the proper way of disposing of deer. If we were to dig a pit and just start putting the deer in there, then Eagle gets involved with the possibility of groundwater contamination of too many deer in one spot, too many livestock in one spot. So it is happening. I do know that there's going to be hearings in Lansing, and I do expect some sort of resolution mid-July, or at least before the season when they start running around and really getting hit. So it is our intent, once we are fully assured that our people are not going to get ticketed, that we will continue to pick up those deer and dispose of them properly, especially in the heavy populated areas.
Yeah, but for our citizens, if you're driving down Silver Pines Road, let's say, and a deer dies in your front yard,
Right now, you're calling the DNR. And the DNR is going to say we don't do that.
so can those people dispose of the deer or whatever it is?
I have come to understanding that there is a salvage tag that is free that you can get online, and you better have one if the DNR officer drives by. Does that make sense?
No.
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 It's not.
Well, it does make sense what you said, but it doesn't make sense what the
It doesn't make
DNR is
sense
doing.
at all. But, and I can forward that link to you, where you can do this. Because the DNR, they want you to have a kill tag or a salvage tag for everything you touch. So theoretically, if it's on your property, you can move it unless the DNR officer is having a bad day and decides they want to give you a ticket for having a deer in your hand. Does that make sense? It doesn't make sense, but that's where we're at. So, I fully anticipate, because this isn't just a Grand Traverse County problem, we just happen to be willing to take on the issue. This is a problem even in Wayne County. They have a problem with their deer. And my mind got jolted when I saw this 1997 memorandum to Senator George with my name on it. Theoretically, under this agreement that has not been changed since 1997, they're actually supposed to be paying us to pick these deer up. So
Go for it.
we are going for it. So I really do anticipate, at least by season, we'll have a resolution. And I know it's inconvenient to the general public, but we can't afford to have our people getting ticketed large sums and/or possibly arrested for trying to move the deer off the roadway. So we are moving them to the side, which we are allowed to do as long as it's in the road right away. But unfortunately, the physical picking up and moving, we have stopped until we get a full understanding of who's responsible for what and that our people are legally protected when they move those deer.
I have two questions. Simple. Is it just deer or is it any, like coons, skunks?
Coons, we generally leave and they take care of themselves because they,
Okay.
I don't want to get too
Smaller.
gross, but they
Lot smaller.
generally disintegrate a lot quicker than a deer.
Yeah. Second question, you mentioned about the bridge, and when that was introduced here, I think might have been me that made a comment about, you have road right-of-ways that you guys own, but under the bridge, you're crossing our parkland.
Correct.
We still have the rights to trail networks and everything
Absolutely.
under your bridge, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I do sit on the Parks and Rec Commission, and we are making, for the county, and we will make sure that that stuff happens.
Okay.
The bridge design, we anticipate to actually be able to bicycle over. I mean, we're anticipating the bridge large enough to be able to,
Oh, wow.
to move non-motorized vehicles as well as pedestrians. So
Yeah. Okay, thank
that's what
you.
we're shooting for. All right?
Any other?
Thanks. Again, apologize that the person wasn't showing up, so.
So, yeah, we filled up on permits. And to give you an idea, we remove about 500 deer a year. So when you think about that logistically, that gives you a better idea of what we're dealing with. I would
about
recommend
$110 a
contacting,
piece.
at about $110 a piece, contacting Representative Roth, cheering him on. He really has gone to bat for us. And really let him know that, you know, the municipalities back this getting resolved quickly.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. Next item is the Planning Department report for May 2023.
Good evening. Get the report in your packet. Just a couple of items I just wanted to highlight. One is the Planning Commission will be receiving an introduction for a new site condominium, Burnley Meadows. It's 26 single-family lots. That's located north of Burnley Hills Estates. So recently, the board approved one called Burnley Estates. That's south of that, kind of next to the Traditions. That was approved. This is another kind of phase area. Basically, it's the ultimate build-out of the Burnley Hills subdivision. So that will be for 26 single-family lots. Also, I just wanted to point out that myself and the planning director from the city and East Bay sit on the airport zoning board, which is a zoning board for the airport property. But just wanted to alert you that we did receive a presentation from MDOT Aeronautics about a airport zoning ordinance that would go beyond the boundaries of the airport itself and in basically regulating the areas that impact the airspace and the approaches to that airport. So at this point, it's just a discussion and investigation, but I just wanted to alert you about that. Also, later this month, we'll be meeting with DNR representative regarding our on-site, regarding our grant application for the Commons Natural Area. So, and finally, there's a groundbreaking tomorrow afternoon for the Beta facility at 2 p.m. That's all I have.
Quick question. I was driving today on Hammond, is where the lumberyard was gonna go on the southeast corner. I saw a sign for storage something or whatever.
Right, that was, storage, Hammond, Garfield, I forget what it's called exactly. It's a storage facility there. It's gonna be pretty significant. So that was a use by right, so that was reviewed internally. It's roughly, I think, about 110,000 square feet of storage. There's, at least under the 3 buildings that are proposed at this point. So there'll be a large, about a 75,000 square foot building right at the corner. Then there's gonna be right next to the east, will be basically a large carport. So things like boats and motorhomes and so forth will be stored under there. They also are getting a permit to cross, there's a creek that runs that property. So that's why you've seen, I think there's some corrugated metal pipe or whatever that they're gonna use for a culvert. That will be a future phase to do additional storage across that creek to the south side of the site, which also has access through the industrial park.
Okay,
So,
good, thank you.
All right, if there's no other questions for John, we will move on to the Parks and Rec report. The next DNR officer.
I do have an idea on how to take care of that roadkill deer problem, but it's going to cost a few bucks. I'm here all night. All right, Sean Kehoe, Garfield Township, Parks Department. You all have a copy of the Parks report, so I'll just highlight a few things for some of the parks. Silver Lake Rec area, the new countertop has been installed. Looks very nice, so that's done and over with. The water has been turned on for the park, so we're good to go there. At the Commons, there was a work bee this weekend on Sunday, I believe, with the mountain bike group there. Did some maintenance on the trail and so forth. I went out and looked at the majority of it yesterday morning, and looks pretty good, so nothing outlandish or anything like that. So it's basically kind of restoring the trail to riding use, so that's good to go. And at River East, if you've been by there, the dog park fencing is going up, so the fencing material is there, and they've started setting the posts and so forth for that, so that should be hopefully completed soon. We've talked about just keeping that closed for the entire year and letting grass establish in there this year, because those big dogs are so hard on grass, so get a year of grass growth in there and then turn them loose next year, hopefully. So Boardman Valley, the pickleball activity is alive and well and in full swing down there, so those courts are getting used. Kids Creek, and behind the Buffalo, where it connects with the Buffalo Ridge Trail, out of the, what did we say, like 3,200 trees that were going to go in there, I think they got about 500 left to plant. It's going well. We're going to have Jennifer's group in there Friday mulching, so we've been blessed with a fair amount of volunteers for that, and then Seeds has been doing a real good job planting in there, so it's in time it will have a lot of shade trees and so forth in there, hopefully. So I'd like to say thanks to all the volunteers that have helped out in that venue. So that is about it. The only other thing is at some point on the agenda tonight, there is a special application for park use that will be presented to the board. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those. So any question on the parks right now?
Good work.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Item G is the treasurer's report.
All right, so hopefully you all had a chance to review all the numbers. In the first quarter, I think we usually do a cash flow analysis and kind of see where we're at, because we get a big influx of money from receiving our tax income. So I did transfer $1 million in the general to Michigan class, and then $1 million for water and $1 million for sewer. And the Michigan class account, again, is an investment pool that's liquid. like cash, and it's making a much higher interest rate than our checking account. And then I also bought $1 million in bonds for our general fund. You can see on the next page, those 2 new bonds highlighted there in kind of a reddish orange. But other than that, nothing else really exciting. Any questions for me?
All looks good. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Item H is the clerk's report.
I've submitted the clerk's report in writing. We're still very busy working on the new uniform chart of accounts. If you look at the clerk's report, you go through each set of those 4 numbers for each of the accounts. We have to go through each one of those separately. So it's been a long process. We're getting there. But we have to do the 101 fund and the 246 fund, and some of them are changing names, some of them are changing numbers. You move on to the next set of 3 digits, and then the next set of 3 digits, finally the last set of 3 digits. We're getting there. It's a long process, but we're almost done. Yeah. So, good times.
Molly?
I got a question for you. This is down on community promotions, 747. With this new transportation organization that's coming up, what's the role of TC Talus that we're paying this money for? Is TC Talus still?
TC Talus was the precursor to the MPO. The conversation today was that the match for the MPO is going to be roughly twice what we were paying for TC, or for TC Talus. So there will still be a contribution. It'll probably be more.
We're just not paying Talus now.
At this point, we paid them for this year because
Right.
through the end of the year, they will be, it's not Talus anymore, it's TTCI. But it is still operating until the governor signs the form, and by the end of the year, we will become an MPO.
Okay. All right, thanks.
The last item is the supervisor's report. I think a lot of people here attended the MTA conference. A lot of good conversations. I think some of the best things I learned were from some of the other township officials. I think our sheriff's department is a really valuable asset for our township. I know townships our size who are paying a lot more money for police than we do. It's a good deal. And it's a good arrangement. I think it gives the sheriff's department some flexibility in staffing, and it gives us the coverage we need. So that works out very well. Had some other conversations about fire departments and roads. A lot of townships are running a township millage on top of a county millage for roads. Not a big fan of the idea, but just a bit of information. We had a TCI meeting today, kind of beginning the process of setting up the organization as it will be as a, I think at this point it's called the Traverse City Garfield Municipal Area. Name will change, but there was discussions about how things will be done, how voting will be done, and it's, we have a little negotiation to do and have a abbreviated period of time to work to get everything to the governor's desk by October 1st, so that's going to be fun. Silver Lake, met with the Silver Lake Improvement Association earlier today, and they're talking about maybe some other projects, trying to, in particular, they're interested in septic tanks. There's a lot of cottage-type septic tanks that were installed 40 years ago, and now people are building family homes that are occupied year-round, and they feel that's a detriment to a lake. So we'll work with our friends at Blair and see if maybe we can. At the same time, I think the state is talking about a statewide septic tank program. So I don't want to be duplicating their efforts. We'll keep an eye on that. I sent a letter to the House. It was regarding gravel pits, removing all local control of gravel pits. This board was unanimously against that in the past, so I invoked the name of the board in the letter, that we are unanimously opposed to any efforts to remove local control. And if anybody's interested in attending the beta groundbreaking tomorrow at 2 o'clock, you should park at the county health facility, and they will have shuttle buses to deliver you there. That sounds like fun. Any questions, comments?
I got one. I'm not sure I heard this in the community, I think from Senator Allen. Lake districts have the ability to form an authority.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what all the rights are, but it seems to me some pots of money might open up for them to help with water and sewer. And I don't know who's checking on that with them, but there is some other way that they can come together and be able to access funds, grants, those kinds of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So you're a supervisor, you can check that out.
I will. I'll just jump right on that. We did talk about when there are new residents in the, essentially the milfoil district that we have now.
Mm-hmm.
We can notify them so that they can reach out to those residents and kind of get them into the organization. And
Sure.
I think when they have a majority of the population there, that'll help them.
Yeah.
In terms of making moves like that.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Good. We'll close out reports and move on to unfinished business, and we have no unfinished business. No new business. Item A, consideration of Cass Road Drainage District access request for branch connections. And our drain commissioner has graciously decided to appear and explain this to us.
Good evening. Thank you for your service to our community. My name is Andy Smets. I'm currently the County Drain Commissioner, and I want to thank the Township for considering item 8A tonight. It's placed on the agenda to facilitate continued improvements of the Cass Road drain. I think the content of the request is fairly straightforward and self-explanatory, but I wanted to make sure that if there were any questions that they were addressed, and brief you on activities that are ongoing there.
So we currently have a tile there that drains inadequately, would be the best way to put it. And also it was placed there without an easement, is that correct?
Yeah, I guess a fuller story than just the two-page letter that's in the board packet may be entertaining for history's sake. In 1987, about 1,200 feet of ditching and piping was placed along the properties that front the west side of Cass Road, beginning from approximately just south of the current Beta Center and proceeding southward towards the cold storage and dry storage facilities on the west side of Cass Road. From the corner of the dry storage property, well, let me start further north. From approximately the north boundary of Traverse Cold Storage, the ditching stops and the underground piping starts, and that piping conveys the water, groundwater essentially, and runoff that enters the ditch from the properties along Cass Road. It conveys that water to Miller Creek, just about where Miller Creek crosses beneath Cass Road. So that's 1987 construction. It hasn't had a lot of maintenance, and a lot of development and runoff has been generated since its creation. Coincidentally, with the improvements that were largely completed in the last couple of years to improve the flow of Miller Creek below Cass Road and below the railroad grade to the east of Cass Road, the incidence of flooding and inundation seems to have stopped. That's despite having some epic, almost biblical storm events since almost during the construction of the drain improvements 2 years ago. These improvements are intended to convey stormwater that was supposed to be connected to those recent improvements per the initial design of the Cass Road drain improvements. That initial design included stormwater piping beneath Cass Road and improvements to Cass Road through a joint effort with the petitioner for these improvements, which was the Grand Traverse County Road Commission. That design was abandoned, or I should say deferred. I don't know that it's abandoned. So the stormwater improvements beneath Cass Road were never installed, and that left the new stormwater from the roof additions from the expansion of Traverse Cold Storage with no place to go except for infiltration. The infiltration system that they installed along the south portion of their building, the south portion of the addition, that seems to be working pretty good to infiltrate the stormwater, but there is, in some instances, excess stormwater that doesn't infiltrate readily, and the idea is to connect that existing infrastructure at Traverse Cold Storage directly to the 1987 piping system that's immediately behind their property. That piping system exists on property owned currently by Garfield Charter Township. That 1987 infrastructure was installed at a time before Garfield Township owned the property, and an easement was granted in favor of the Cass Road Drainage District to allow that infrastructure to take place for installation and maintenance of that 1987 branch. A strict read of the old easement suggests that it does not necessarily include improvements to that drain or additions to the drain, such as the new branch that has been contemplated by the agreement by my predecessor in office and Traverse Cold Storage. So I'm here tonight to ask for permission to traverse, for the drainage district, to traverse a small portion of Garfield Charter Township property to allow connection to pipe that exists underneath that property today. It's probably only about 15 or 20 feet of piping to connect the existing stormwater infiltration system for Traverse Cold Storage to the existing 1987 piping. And that is the fuller story.
The rest of the story.
Holly?
So has the 1987 piping been maintained, and is it in good enough shape to be able to accept this new addition?
That's a great question. The answer, there's several questions there, so let me unravel them. First, maintenance has been infrequent. That's the kindest way to put it. That frequency has increased recently. It is flowing currently. It is working. There will be an inspection, television, of the entire route of the piping. There appears to be some collapse features along the route of the piping near where it starts. So, and there is some gravel, some sediment inside one of the manhole structures where you can inspect that 1987 infrastructure. So it's very likely there's some maintenance that's needed on the pipe anyhow. And that will take place in accordance with the improvements that were planned 2 years ago, and in conjunction with this, what's called a Section 425 agreement. It's a private agreement, or an agreement between the drainage district and a party within the drainage district that allows for that party to gain additional drainage services at their cost. It's part of the drain code, and it's been part of the drain code for eons. And again, the predecessor in office formed that agreement when it was clear that the plans for the Cass Road drainage structures would not be installed in conjunction with Cass Road improvements. So it is flowing. Its capacity is roughly about 200 gallons per minute. The inlet gets maintained regularly to make sure that debris and vegetation don't clog it. And it will be televised and inspected, and necessary repairs made to it in conjunction with this work.
So will there be a requirement that they make the improvements where the drain is collapsed and where there's sediment in the manhole and other things before hooking in, or that's going to be something ongoing?
Yes, that's also a good question. The sequence of activities, without permission, nothing happens. Okay? They can't connect because we don't have an agreement to traverse the property. The drainage district does not. When that permission is granted, then the next series of events is a modification of the existing Section 425 agreement to include additional requirements on the developer that are not in the agreement today. And the burden on the private party to make that connection will increase. It will increase to include maintenance. It will increase not only maintenance of the existing drainage system, drainage structures up to their connection point from the inlet, basically all the way upstream. But also there's going to be some improvements required on their property and improvements required in the way that they operate.
And the drain commissioner's office will police that?
Indeed, it'll be embedded in the agreement, and that agreement will be recorded.
Okay, thank you.
Steve?
This is for surface water runoff?
It is.
Does it link to the bond we have and removes that issue out front to drain it to the back?
It would, we would be able to release that bond if they have a system installed that works, yeah.
So they would have to reverse their drainage into the ditch and pipe it to the back? If elevation allows.
Yeah.
Is that what?
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Are you familiar? Okay.
I do, in fact. And in fact, I was part of the discussions with the road commission at the time that they discontinued the right-of-way permit that the private party had for a period of time during the 2020, 2021 improvements to Cass Road Drain. When that ceased, that's when the engagement for the Section 425 agreement ramped up. And so the existing infrastructure for that roof, stormwater runoff, is essentially flat. The only slope on the pipe really is a modest amount at the outfall towards Cass Road currently. The proposed connection at the time would have had enough slope from that point on the private property out to essentially the center line of Cass Road to make the stormwater flow sufficient velocity to get it away from the property. That same slope is available on the backside getting into the 1987 piping.
So once this is done, and you are approving it and our engineer approves it, then that bond could be released back to them?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, the drain commissioner will be responsible for policing the maintenance of that for eternity, right?
Indeed, it's going to be the responsibility of the private party that'll be buried into the agreement that they're going to have to place into a fund, a sinking fund for perpetual maintenance.
So they'll be responsible for their leg to the 1987 line?
Correct.
And then from there, the 1987 line is drain commissioner's responsibility?
Well, it's the drainage district's responsibility,
districts.
administered
I'm-
by the
yeah.
drain commissioner, yes.
I didn't want to put it on you.
Yep. Well, I'm only here for as long as I'm here.
Okay. Thank you. Answered my question.
All right. Chris?
So I had heard over time, and I don't know what's true and what isn't, that there were some exceptions made for them in the stormwater and how it's diverted. I don't know if that's true or not.
That was the road commission allowing them to use their ditch.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that diversion is not uncommon throughout the county. It's not a practice that's welcomed, but historically, it's not uncommon at all for surface water runoff to be directed towards a road right away.
Okay.
That practice is largely, recognized as being unsustainable, and it's not allowed anymore.
So was it just a simple solution to a problem, probably cheapest solution at the time? Probably not obviously the best, because here we are today with a new plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think, well, we were, at one point, they were planning on putting a giant pipe down the middle of Cass Road running to the north. The cost benefit on that just didn't click. I mean, it was a lot of money for a modest improvement. So that's why it didn't happen.
Which would have been the cold storage's responsibility?
No, it would have been everybody in Garfield's responsibility.
Okay.
And the county, and the road commission, and. The cost for that would have been spread over a vast number of entities.
Okay. And then on your drawing, is it the red? Would that be the new line connecting to the 1987 branch?
Well, you have a color printer, and I don't. Yes.
Okay, so,
It's a very short connection. There's an existing manhole already on the south end, the south portion of Traverse Cold Storage property that was installed with their expanded roof drainage system to allow for future connection.
okay.
And we would connect that to a new manhole placed on top of the existing 10-inch plastic pipe.
So the 1987 drain goes north-south, and then you see on the bottom of your picture curves to the east.
Correct.
I'm just trying to, weigh out the consequences. Is it better to run it to the south to connect as it comes across to the east, versus going over the township property? Obviously, it would cost more because there's a greater distance. You follow me?
There's dry storage there, Chris.
Yeah, there's another property owner immediately to the south
Okay.
of cold storage that is dry storage.
Sorry, John.
That would require,
Permission on their part?
and it would still require, once we cleared that property, we'd still be, I think, I'd have to check the map, we'd be close to the limits of township property, but we actually might be on county property by that time. It'd be more piping. I don't know that we didn't evaluate the length and slope of piping needed to go from the existing manhole on the Traverse Cold Storage property. That distance, we were looking at the straightest, shortest shot, and it made the most sense. We didn't consider alternatives.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt Resolution 2023-13-T.
You had a question?
Sorry.
Thank you. I didn't know your questions were over with. I did notice a typo in my work to prepare this resolution. And there is one misspelled word. I brought all the papers up except for that. It is the word granted. Should just be grant.
Where's that at?
Should be the first preamble whereas, dealing with the existing easement. It's a minor typographic issue.
Okay, so it should be grant
Yes.
rather than granted.
Yes. And if you're really, a stickler for pronouns, there's another one where the drain commissioner should not be there, it should be its on the last whereas. I know everybody's really hung up on pronouns these days, so I thought I'd point that one out.
We appreciate it.
I
I
cheated in
make-
English, it sounded fine.
I make a motion that we adopt Resolution 2023-13-T regarding the Cass Road Drainage District access request for branch connections with corrections.
Support.
We have a motion from Schmuckel and support from Buell. Any questions or comments? Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes.
Bull.
Yes.
Gustinelli.
Yes.
Arshef.
Yes.
McManus.
Yes.
Cumber.
Yes.
Corn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As
you.
we proceed with this, I'll keep the township fully informed on the progress, and particularly the revised Section 425 agreement. I believe that once the developer meets the requirements of that agreement and places in escrow the funds necessary for 10% of the new construction and maintenance, that should probably relieve the need for the letter of credit that exists, but I'll leave that up to you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for your good work. Next item is consideration of park special event application and updated fee schedule, Resolution 2023-12-T.
Do you want me to address this because I was at the meeting and we did it, or do you want Sean to do it?
Well, let's let Sean have at it, and you can correct him if he makes any mistakes.
Sean, make a mistake?
Definitely possible. So basically, we've been getting quite a few requests this year for events outside of just renting a pavilion or just renting the rugby field. We've had some race inquiries at some of the parks, and we've had a request for a national night out at Silver Lake, which is in August. So there's been a variety of different events that people want to bring to our parks. And talking with planning and so forth, we felt that the outdoor gathering permit that is currently in the township arsenal is really not designed for park use. So John was able to find a application from another county, and we kind of made that to what we thought we would need. We kind of dummied it down to a couple pages versus, I think the first one was 5 or 6 pages, and there was just a lot of things on there that we really didn't care about in terms of organized events in our parks per se. So we structured that to what we thought would benefit us, and then discussed whether we should have a fee associated with this or not. And we took this to the Parks Board, and the Parks Board recommended, for approval to the township, to move it to the Township Board for approval. So that's where we're at now. With regards to a few issues on the form that you have, that's pretty much the finalized form that we have come up with. And Denise, I know you had suggested, I wasn't at the last Parks meeting, but you guys had made some suggestions, and we made changes to those suggestions with a few that we altered a little bit from what Parks was addressing. First of all, there was a question on the insurance requirements, and I contacted Paul Olson from the Municipal Underwriters of Michigan, which is the township insurer, and he advised that Garfield Township does have a special event liability built into its plan, and that requiring coverage from user groups is not necessary unless in the event that the township allows them to use alcohol in the park or fireworks, basically, which neither one of those is going to happen. So we are covered under the current agreement that we have with the underwriters group. So we took out there was 2 segments of traffic closure in there. We left one of those things in there, basically so that our staff would be aware that if an applicant did notify an outside agency like the road commission or any of the law enforcement agencies that there would be a road closure, that we would be aware of that. And we also left it in there as kind of a reminder to applicants, if their event does get to be, large enough to the point where they have to have a traffic closure, that is something that they're gonna have to pursue through those other entities. The open flames section, we just basically wiped that out, but we did keep that in there, and we just pasted the open flames requirements that are in the park ordinance. So that's just spelled out clear as to what the ordinance says. And then at the end, we did add for official use only box at the bottom of the, it should be at the bottom of the application. And that's basically so that we can track events from year to year. If they left it trashed out, or there was something that is going to spark our interest where we don't want to have them back or something like that, that we can document that in the event that staffing changes and they have to go back and look at these applications to make those decisions for the future. So 2 other things real quick with the fee. The Parks Commission suggested an event fee of $500. That's not overly concerning with the park staff per se. We would just like to have some flexibility when we have smaller nonprofit groups like Boy Scouts or 4-H, or if we have, like right now, we just had an approval or a request for approval for our section of the Boardman Lake Loop, where they've had to get applications into the city and TART and other things that where that's not our entirely owned part, or we don't want to own the entire park. So having that flexibility of saying, okay, we're not going to charge you for this when a majority of that loop is outside of our venue. The security deposit of $1,000 is obviously something that we're for. That is something that we want people to want to get their money back. We felt that $200 might be something that people would say, for $200 the parks guys can clean it up. Well, we don't want that. We want them to clean up their own mess, and we want them to get their $1,000 back. So, we felt that was an amount that would kind of bring them to their senses about cleaning up their own messes. So
That was originally on there at $250 and $500, and that's why the commission decided to increase it, because some people will very easily say, well, for $500 they can just go ahead and clean it up and leave it trashed. Where at $1,000, they're more apt to make sure it's clean because they want that $1,000 back. And the other thing is what you were talking about, the discretion as far as charging. That was brought up and discussed a lot, and they don't want it that way. They want it flat fee all the way.
I think with an administrative function, when you have a small group that's nonprofits and people who really wouldn't walk away from a $500 deposit, I think it is a good idea to allow them a lesser fee.
But the thing that was brought up too, and this is just what was brought up at the commission meeting
Yeah.
itself, is if the Boy Scouts get it for no fee or $100, and someone else finds out about it and says, and is rented it at $500, why do they get it at $100 and we have to pay $500? That was their concern. That's why they wanted to basically say a flat fee. That,
Yeah.
just bringing up the concerns of the commission that night.
Yeah. No, there are people, like you say, who will walk away from a big security deposit because they don't want to clean up the mess. And there are other groups to whom a couple $100 is a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's trying to accommodate both and be reasonable. And I think rather than, allow it on as I said, on an administrative basis to come up through the channels and bring it to me.
So the question I have for you, is this still gonna say event fee $500 and security deposit? And then at that point in time say, well, we're only gonna charge you $200? I'm just asking that question.
Yeah, if there's a situation that arises where they say, well, we simply can't do that because
Like the Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I understand that. I do. These were the
we
concerns.
got a den
that-
mother with 5, 6 Cub Scouts.
We spent a good hour on this changing it, so I just wanted to, they just said, that was brought up and said, no, it's gonna be straight across, so.
No.
And I totally understand that, but I'm just bringing you up the concerns of the commission.
Molly? I'm sorry, Steve had his hand up first.
So Denise, and you can answer this, Derek, not Derek, sorry, wrong one.
Sean.
Sean, the event fee is, so let's say they're using Silver Lake Park.
Mhm.
The $500 event fee allows them to use the whole park? Or how is that, what is, like if you wanted just the pavilion, is it still
There is,
$500?
no, there's still a pavilion, the pavilions are separate. There's still pavilion rental policy in place where if they just want to rent the pavilion.
That's a different
And then,
cost,
and there's a different fee schedule for that. It's obviously much smaller based on resident, non-resident type thing. This is for larger groups that would be probably, too big for the pavilion. I think if they wanted to rent the pavilion, that would probably be, I don't know, if it would be included or if that would be a separate fee all by itself, or, that would be something that we would have to look at. But the only current thing for Silver Lake is National Night Out, and they really want to use like the multi-use field and then like the back end of the baseball field, outfield type thing for, displays and so forth type.
So he just raised a question, so if they use the event fee for 500 and they use the pavilion, is that an additional fee on top of the 500? And then the other catch to that is the park closed during the event, or is it always open to public?
No, I think our
It's always-
discussion
yeah.
was that the park will remain open to the public.
That was one of the concerns of the commission, it will remain open.
Okay. So does the event fee cover use of anything there? Or is there recipe items that you can pull in, like we want to use the ball diamond, we want to use the pavilion?
Well, and that is kind of getting their idea of what they want to do in our parks is something that we would evaluate when they turn the application in. The application's not a guarantee that we're going to approve it, obviously, because there's some things that, that would negate them from having, for example, if they want to sell stuff or whatever, things that go against our current policy in the parks that would eliminate them from having that event there. Or those are all things that we would review in that application. But, I think when those applications come in, we would review, was there a request for the pavilion? Do they want to use a field? Are they doing a running race or, those sort of things, so.
And Sean, that was brought up too, because somebody said, what happens if they want to use a pavilion and it's already rented? Well, that is something that would be brought up at that point in time. It said, you can do the event on the fields and everything else, but the pavilion you cannot use because it's already been rented.
Right.
So that would be something that would coordinate with staff on that.
Yeah, or I'm just thinking of an easy one, like a family sitting in there with pizza and that, enjoying their evening, and then the event people come in and say, you gotta leave because we've rented the whole facility.
Well, if they didn't rent it, they have to leave.
No, but if they didn't pay the fee for the pavilion itself,
Right.
do they get that with their event? Or do they have to pay the fee for the pavilion? See what I'm saying? Would it override?
Yeah, I see exactly what you're saying.
Yep.
So there's
They're
three,
having an event, they're using the big all-sports field mainly, but yet they go over there and tell these people they gotta get out of the pavilion because we've rented the whole thing for $500. Do they have that right?
so we post the property when there's a reservation. So if they were reserving the field and the pavilion, there's 3 pavilions. So it would list that.
But if they didn't, okay, you just answered it, so.
If their application came in and they had interest in renting a pavilion, we could go to Kathleen right away and she could tell us if it's been rented or not for that particular weekend. If it hasn't been, then I don't necessarily see a problem with including that in the $500 or charging them the extra $35 or whatever it is for that. I don't think a pavilion rental on a $500 fee is gonna make or break their decision
Right.
whether they want to have it there or not, or whether we want to include it. The $500 fee, we originally kind of just said $250, and that was because we were looking at it from a staff's viewpoint as to, this is a fair amount of money to ask for somebody for what the staff has, invested in its time and reviewing the application, whether they need, extension cords out there or something dropped off, or making sure the garbage is empty and ready to go. So that, it was more about, the time that the staff would have involved in this whole process versus, what should we charge them to make money on type thing.
Right.
And the other thing with the with the $1,000 was, of course, the parking's gonna maybe a problem. And a couple of the commissions said, what happens if they bust 3 sprinkler heads? That's a couple $100 right there. That's why they decided the $1,000, because at that point in time, we know that Sean and Derek can probably go and fix them, but that's their time too, plus the materials. So that's why they wanted to do it for $1,000.
Molly?
So as these parks become more popular, big events, do we have anything that limits really big events, like a state cross-country meet up at the Commons, or I guess they could probably go on at Silver Lake too? Are we trying to keep it more local? We could have a statewide bicycle race up through the Commons. There's lots of things that could come into focus as we develop these properties.
Well, I think first and
Well,
foremost,
I think John can speak to a large gathering event because we have an ordinance
Okay,
for that.
okay.
Yeah,
That
you
would
do have an
limit it.
outdoor gathering ordinance, and it's based on a number of attendees. So if you have something greater, 300 or more have to go through a process, and there's a review committee that's set up. I believe it's myself, the zoning administrator, and the chair of the planning commission. So that's a much more official type of process that they would have to go through. And again, that's 300 or more anywhere within the township. That's a general law ordinance.
So we shouldn't have 300 people at Silver Lake Park for any event unless
could,
they've
but they
come
would have-
through.
at that point-
Unless they've come through
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Correct.
I think first and foremost, just to touch on what you were saying, Molly, is that our intentions, part in agreement with the $500, was to really kind of limit what people want to apply for to use our parks for. I mean, the first intention of the parks is for public use. I mean,
Right.
they are township parks, and they're designed for that. They're not necessarily designed to be event platforms for everybody that wants to have a special event. So, I think we're going to be pretty restrictive on our application reviews. And, I had just had a request actually for the pickleball courts this week, where a guy wanted to do like a pro exhibition and clinic all weekend, and he wanted to rent all the courts for the weekend, and we simply, that was even before this has been approved or anything, and we simply said, no, there's policy in terms of how many courts can be rented, the hours that they can be rented. The main design of those courts is for public use for the township residents and guests, but we're not afraid to say no if it's something that's going to jeopardize the park or its public attendance.
Thank you.
Oh, Laney,
Way down there.
way down there.
Are we gonna put a limit to how many events we're gonna have at our parks a year? Because if we have an event every weekend where our residents are gonna be, not really be able to enjoy the park like they normally would, that's gonna become an issue. How many events are we looking at?
Well, like I said, last year we didn't have any of these, and then this year we've had 6 to 8 requests for different things at different parks. So I don't know if this is a new trend or if this is just a once every 10-year type thing that's surfaced this year. Or
Saying 6 to 8 weekends, that's your summer. up
yeah,
here.
it's like Silver Lake is a busy
And-
park without events.
And the neighbors aren't going to enjoy that
Right.
across the street, around them.
Well,
Depending on what the event is.
Right, and Derek and I have talked with John and Steve in planning, and we're really aware of what a park can handle, in terms of like parking is a major point, So if it's something that's going to have too much parking issues, then you're either going to have to come up with a plan B to shuttle people there, or you're just not gonna have your event there, you know. Those are all things that we're gonna look at every time somebody applies for one of these things, because we have to incorporate, you know, those parks aren't, you know, professional athletic fields where they're designed to hold a lot of people. They're just parks, you know, township parks, so.
Denise?
And that was one of the things that came up at the commission too, that we figured it was the best for the staff to take care of that. You know, if they're looking at what they're gonna do, you know, and they're gonna think that, you know, you're gonna have a lot of people out there and they're gonna be parking on the lawns and everything else. That's why we figured the staff would be the best one to say yay or nay.
Feet on the ground.
Right, exactly. They know more about it than we do.
And ask my
Amy.
kids, I have no problem saying no.
My question wasn't answered. Yes, we're gonna limit them, or no, we're not limiting?
Well, I don't know how you put a number on it, I guess, and, I mean, is the first year a trial and error year, or, you know, and do you limit it per park, or do you limit it, you know, per park's total, or, you know, what is, I don't know, I don't have an answer for that. I mean, it's something obviously to consider, but, you know, we've had one at the Boardman Lake Loop, we've had one at Boardman River Valley, we have one at Silver Lake, so, you know, and then, you know, like this National Night Out, I see this as something that, you know, every year they're gonna wanna probably do it, if it's successful.
It's one night.
Yeah, that's one night, yeah. And
Not-
it's-
not
and
a
that's
week-
like
not a
Tuesday.
weekend or
Yeah, it's
a-
a Tuesday, I think, yeah.
Okay.
In August.
Not the
so-
daytime.
A question
Afternoon.
on the night out.
Please.
We're still within our operating hours.
Yeah.
This is not an all-nighter.
Right.
No,
going on.
we asked that on the form, set up time to tear down time. What time are you looking at being in the park? Because we have, you know, like I said, no problem saying, no, that's not gonna work, the park closes or whatever, so.
Good.
Steve?
When you had John answer the question, I'm wondering if we shouldn't add to this form an estimated count of attendance without telling them over 300 requires something else, because then they're gonna go, there's 299 coming. You know what I'm saying? Maybe,
Well,
I didn't see it on here where
the-
you would
the-
ask that, because if
I-
it's, let's say it's over 300, it's gonna require John Racine and John Syke, and,
It's
is
on-
it in here?
Yeah.
Did I
look at
miss
the
it?
First page, general event information, fourth item, anticipated number of attendees.
Oh, there it
and
is. Yep, okay,
participating
I
staff.
missed
Thought we
it.
had that in there, yeah.
Good, I'm glad
Yeah,
that's in there.
that's a
Yeah,
critical
thank you.
number to know.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't see that, I missed it.
And this, my discussion with John has been that there is one mention in the outdoor gathering for over 300 people of, does this take place in a township park or not? And really, outside of that, I don't think there's much in there that's mentioned towards the parks. So this application is really designed strictly for the parks, and then that's it. So, you know, whether the outdoor gathering would be necessary for something in the parks over 300, or if this would suffice, I would venture to guess that this would suffice. But I would also venture to guess that we don't probably have a lot of plans to have events that have more than 300 people at them.
I think it's gonna be based on how our ordinance is written, right? I mean, does it exempt parks from counts?
I have to take a look at that, but that's a good thing.
It may not.
Some of the comments here, I think we had to do some more research on this as well. I think certainly the form gets us started, but I think particularly when you figure out what is going to be the impact, the parks are there for the residents. That's, you know, it's the first and foremost what these parks are for, and they're not intended to be event centers or athletic facilities. We also have to be careful on those activities, like when Sean was mentioning about the pickleball courts. Those were funded through DNR Trust Fund grant. They cannot provide, you know, have any type of fee associated with the use of those courts. Those always have to be available at no charge. You can do things like reservations and so forth, but there can't be anything operating there that has some type of event where people have to pay an entry to it, so.
Chloe?
So back to the fee part of it, since I'm the one collecting it and I gotta make sure that I'm collecting the right amount. I'm a really black and white person, so just when Denise spoke and just that we're gonna be, you know, kind of deciding if people pay less. I was wondering, could we do like a small event fee and make it less, so then smaller groups could pay less, and put a limit of how many people? Did you guys discuss that at all? Then we would have, you know, if you have a group of 30 people or less and you wanna do a big event, like a Boy Scout group, could that just be $100? You know, and put that schedule on here as opposed to just kind of deciding, I don't know, did you discuss that at all?
We
Instead of a
discussed-
flat 500?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
It was a flat 500, and I think the reasoning being is, and then the discretion was gonna be made with the staff, like if it is the Boy Scouts. You know, it's just a flat 500 at this time, because then you'd have the thing about, well, how come you only charge them $100 and you charge us $500? You're not gonna have the staff to have to be answering those questions.
Yeah, that's my concern too. And I
Yeah.
follow the fee schedule when I collect money at the counter, so that's what I'm worried about too. And so like, would I just get a signature from Chuck saying it's okay,
Well, I
or?
think, wouldn't you be doing, I know you would be the final say, but wouldn't you have already talked to them and say, yes, this is gonna be a $1,500, the $500 for this fee, and then the $1,000 for the deposit? You would be making that final decision of what the number is,
Right,
so-
and if it was less than that, I would sign it.
Right, right.
On the other hand, I mean, if it's a very small group, they just typically show up and have fun at the
Yeah.
park.
Yeah, I was
mean,
thinking,
At some point, it's what people do is show up and have fun at the park. You know, and when a group comes in and wants to reserve a large area, that's what this is all about. So I don't know how often we'd actually need to do that, because, you know, if it's a Cub Scout troop,
that's exactly what the commission
you know,
said.
it's
too,
a mom and,
basically, yeah.
and 6 kids.
So we're looking at the larger events than anything else.
I was
Cleaning.
just gonna say, usually a Boy Scout troop would rent a pavilion
Right.
Yeah.
or the ball field, one of those things, or both, not have a
Not
big
the whole-
event.
yeah.
They're not gonna do a big
Okay,
event.
so it won't happen very often. If it does, I will have Chuck sign the application before I take it. Is
Yep.
that gonna be the process?
And I think it'll
I wanna
be-
make sure we are following. the
I think it'll be
process.
extremely rare.
Okay, okay, sounds good.
John?
I just want to point out, though, on the schedule, only the board can waive fees, the way it's written.
Right.
So if you want, if you want to have that for the event fee, maybe you might want to stipulate that on the fee schedule, because there is, that down in the right-hand corner, it says fees may be waived in whole or part by the township board. So that applies to everything on that sheet. So, because I know when we have people coming in and they ask about waivers, and we're like, we can't, you have to go to the township board to do that. So just want to point that out.
Yeah.
Just show up at the park and have fun.
There you go.
So could we add on there, like, with exception to special event fees?
I think what Chuck's saying.
Just show up and
Show
have
up and-
fun.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, if it's that smaller group,
Yeah.
yeah,
just show up and have fun.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't think they're gonna do the whole, what we're talking as a whole. I think the commission said that, like, using the ball fields, the pavilions, everything. Like, what was that one that you were saying that wants it for Tuesday night in August?
National Night Out.
Yeah, so they want the whole thing, you know, and I'm sure the Boy Scouts are gonna want the whole thing. Like Laney said, it's gonna be a pavilion and maybe the ball field.
I mean, I can see us, like I said, we've already had one application for our portion of the Boardman Lake Loop. So, you know, I don't see that as something where we want to charge $500.
Right.
We just own a small section of it, and then they have to get permitted through the city and
Yeah.
everybody else to use the rest of it. So
Right.
for Garfield to come in and say, you owe us $500 and nobody else is charging them is
Yeah.
not really.
Well, could we put up like a toll?
Yeah, we could. We could have a toll road. Yeah. Yeah.
Here's somebody,
Yeah. Welcome to the Corn Expressway.
$1.
$1, please.
So do you need a motion for this, sir?
I would entertain a motion, yes.
I would entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 2023-12-T, adopting a revised schedule covering various planning, zoning, land use, mapping, and licensing fees.
Support. We have a motion and support to adopt the resolution as presented. Any other questions or comments? A roll call vote, please.
Schmuckel.
Yes.
Barsha.
Yes.
McCumber.
Yes.
McManus.
Yes.
Duel.
Yes.
Gustinelli.
yes.
And Corn.
Yes. That concludes our new business, and we are back to public comment.
Okay.
I have a follow-up to Commissioner Augustinelli's question. If you would like the arms, it's roughly 170 to 180,000 additional dollars, of which the road commissioner would expect the township to pick up. It would delay the project probably until next year. We are concerned that the lights are past their end of life, so there could be some failure involved. But if that's something this board really wants, we need to know, because we already authorized the bid, so we'd have to pull back bids, so.
You're not feeling very generous, is what you're telling me.
I'm just telling you the information that I just got, so.
So what's interesting is just a short time ago at the corner of Barnes and Long Lake, these tremendous mast arms appeared. Gigantic things, all glistening steel. Nobody at the township knew they were coming.
Oh, I can't speak to that honestly.
Okay. Nor were
But that-
we asked to
but that is-
participate, so.
If that is something you really want us to look at, like I said, we need to know, because it will delay the project. The lights are past end of life, so there could be possible failures, like we had at Lafreniere last
Oh, no,
year.
oh, no, I live there, no, no, no.
Because they are definitely past end of life, and there's that additional cost, and right now, we would expect the township to pick up the additional cost.
What is that cost again?
170, 180 on the outside. Part of the problem is when we do these masks, we have an additional payment where we literally pay somebody to watch them be produced for the insurance value that they are being produced correctly. I do know about that part of it. So the masks are created, we have to have our person or a person that's certified to make sure they're constructed correctly, and they get built on demand, so.
One of a kind.
Mhm.
Chloe had her hand up first.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it seemed like in the past, the road commission had asked this board, you know, what we wanna do design-wise, so it would just be nice in the future, if you're gonna do a light in Garfield, if you could reach out to the township and just give us that option, because we might wanna do that for some of our lights, and then you'd have more time to work that in. That would be nice.
Again, we apologize that somebody was not arriving here like I thought since the first of the year, so.
All right.
So, we're okay to go, or do you want
I
us
believe
to-
so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
You.
Anyone else for public comment?
Uh-oh.
Well, with this group of people in the room, particularly Lieutenant Brinks, I couldn't help but hear something that I wanted to bring up. A couple of years ago, many of you may remember that I worked with Commissioner Jewett on a personal project to get a liaison officer at West Senior High and West Middle. And I may or may not have ambushed the sheriff on live TV about that, but it was an important thing, and we got the county board to agree with us, and I had heard that the Garfield Township Board had insinuated that they were interested in funding potentially an additional CPO that would be assigned specifically to the schools. And then our sheriff came on before the budget time and made it clear that it wasn't until, at which point the sheriff's department was fully staffed, that we could discuss having a liaison officer at West Senior High and West Middle. And I'm pretty sure he said 2 new people are coming on to make the sheriff's department fully staffed. Is that correct? Oh, but I heard the sheriff say that at which point we are fully staffed, we can discuss this again. So I would like to ask Commissioner Jewett, who isn't here, Commissioner Flynn, it's really important. It's really important. For those of us that work with at-risk youth, it's really important, so.
We have our 5th.
Yeah.
And we have Mike Makowski in the schools full-time during the school year.
Full-time. I see him there.
And I heard from some TCAPS people today that he is wonderful, and they are very happy with the arrangement.
And we are not going to have him pulled off and
In the summertime.
okay, so we can discuss maybe something like that. But I just wanted to say that that was really great to hear, because I haven't heard the sheriff's department being fully staffed in a long time. So that is good. And I would recommend contacting John Chase at County Parks. He is a valuable resource at Parks Fees. He has absolutely redone all of the county parks fees, has extensive experience in multi-field parks and how to rent them out. And the words that we use are at the discretion of the director. So you could be at the discretion of the supervisor, and you're done. So he's a good resource, though. And the CPO, thank you for that.
Is there anyone else for public comment? Is there any other business to come before the board this evening?
Let me just bring up one thing. There's been a lot of discussion about the Pines homeless camp. That is part of the Commons. The Commons is run by the Joint Planning Commission, and Garfield Township is a part of that Joint Planning Commission, even though it's located in Traverse City, the city of Traverse City. Does Garfield, I mean, currently, camping is not allowed. Does Garfield want to step into that mess, or? No?
So enforceability is always a question, and we enforce within Garfield's part of the joint
Only.
planning area, and the city enforces within the city's part. The city is not enforcing.
Right.
They do not allow homeless people to sleep in any of their parks except that one. They don't want homeless people in their parks, but they're okay to put them on the commons.
But they are always consulted, like when we're doing our bike things in our township, we consult the city. You know, we bring them in because it's a joint.
Yeah, well, they're doing good for poor people, so it's fine for them to do that. They don't consult with us, no. They built a wet house. While we were looking for a place that would be appropriate for a wet house, they rented a place in the middle of a residential area.
I remember that well.
Yeah, it's
Just the way
two
you-
different sets of rules
way you
because
do
they're
it.
being guided by a higher power. So,
Get in there and make your displeasure known.
I have. Any other business come before the board tonight? And if there are no objections, we will stand adjourned. Thank you.